Hi there, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we're talking with Nina Aublé, who is a vibrant life coach helping women to have more energy, more confidence, better sleep, and overall more joy in their life. We talk about Nina's journey into this kind of work, and she shares some of her quite tragic and strong and dangerous and scary moments in life that really led her on the journey of self-healing and understanding how to be happier, healthier, more energized person. She is a yoga teacher, she is a meditation and breathwork practitioner, she is an EFT tapping trainer, and she uses all of these tools to help women overcome stress, self-doubt, procrastination, and ultimately live their most vibrant lives. But that's enough of an introduction, I think. You will love this conversation with Nina, so let's go.
Before we get into our conversation with Nina, I just wanted to give you a little reminder about our newsletter. We send it out twice a month so you don't get bombarded with it. The link is below in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe, follow, hit that notification button, share all the episodes that you think people will benefit from. But now, let's get back onto our wonderful conversation with Nina.
Hi, Nina.
Hi, Lenka. Nice to be here.
So excited to have you here. So please tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, what brings you here on the podcast, what we may get into, what conversations, what topics, what insights can our listeners look forward to today?
So I'm Nina. I am a vibrant life coach, and I help women to boost their confidence, increase energy, sleep better, and all that you've probably heard before. But underneath all that, I really have this feeling of joy. I really want to increase the joy in women's lives. And the reason why we go into kind of sleep, confidence, and energy, because without those things, joy is a little bit hard to come by. So we have these three components, but my biggest passion is increasing joy in somebody's life. So I am also a yoga teacher, which I'm super passionate about. I teach yoga 5 times a week. I'm a breathwork and meditation practitioner. I'm also a qualified stress, sleep, and recovery coach. And I am also a newly qualified EFT tapping trainer, which is really cool. I've been practicing tapping for about a year now, and really wanted to be able to pass the skills on to other people because I find tapping's really powerful. So that's kind of me professionally. I'm also a mom to an 8-year-old girl. I'm a wife. I live here in France. I'm originally from the UK. I love fitness, health, hiking, being outside, being with my friends, being outside, reading. I don't know if I've said it, but it deserves to be said twice if I didn't say it once before because I love it so much. And yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me.
That's wonderful. And I always love kind of when people have different modalities and different aspects, when you bring in, oh, I found this, let me get some training, let me get deeper, and I found this. I would love to know a little bit more about how did you end up, starting with being a yoga teacher, adding these modalities, and then focusing on the work that you do with really bringing joy to people, helping people to find their joy with, all the obviously modalities that you have and you keep adding to help them increase energy, boost confidence, find better sleep, all the little things. What was the starting point for you? Where did all this inspiration to get on this path came for you?
That's a great question. So I think with any change in life, or when you really find your direction, I think there's a precursor to that. And for me, there was really two big life events. The first one was losing my dad to brain cancer 13 years ago. And at the time that my dad passed, he was everything to me. So I was single, I didn't have any children. I was working abroad at the time, away from friends and family. And my dad was, he was my best friend. He was my dad. And when he was given his terminal diagnosis, he was given a 3-month diagnosis. Something kind of switched in me, and internally I knew I had to become stronger in order to get through this, and not only to get through it for me, but also to be there for my dad. I knew I had to become mentally stronger, physically stronger, emotionally stronger. And so that really led me down this path. And at the time, really all I had open to me was becoming physically stronger. So, doing more exercise, watching what I eat, staying away from alcohol. It's kind of, I kind of felt like I was on a tightrope, and anything could have pushed me off that tightrope and I would have fallen. So that's the path that I went down. I started really looking after the fitness side and the nutrition side. And then about 3 years after my dad died, I had met my now husband, and I was trying to get pregnant. Went to see the gynecologist, and he said, "Oh, you've got high blood pressure. This is strange for someone who's fit, healthy," because I've been exercising and not drinking and doing all those kind of things. And I was only 37 at the time. And he said, "Oh, I'd like you to go see a cardiologist." Oh, fine, no problem. I'm fit, I'm healthy, no problem. And then after a series of tests, MRIs, blood tests, what feels like 1,000 questions, I was diagnosed with heart failure. And they have a strange way. For me, it was a strange way of doing things in France, whereby you're not told by a doctor. In fact, I just got an email with my results. And there I was at work, and I remember it very well. And I got my results through, and there it said what I had. So what's the first thing that you do when you get a diagnosis? And you Google it. And it was the worst thing I could possibly have done, because I Googled it and it said that the lifespan of somebody with what I had, which is cardiomyopathy, was between 3 and 5 years. And I still remember that feeling of, like when they say the blood drains from your body, I just felt, the blood just went, and I was like, oh my God, I am going to die. I was at work, and I was just like, what do I do? That was, I'm happy to say, 11 years ago. I'm still here. And being diagnosed with heart failure as somebody who is fit and healthy, was a massive shock. And so there was a lot of coming to terms with it, having to be put on medication, but also a lot of reassurance from my medical team, from my cardiologist especially, who, you know, I had so much respect for, in that you're not going to die. You know, Nina, you're not going to die. And like, I remember telling people that I had been diagnosed with heart failure. And I remember telling my brother was like, but you'd be dead. You know, heart failure means that you're dead. How can you have heart failure? And I was like, well, you know, I'm not making, you know, it's like, well, how do you explain that? You know, I'm not making this up. I wish I was making it up. Anyway, so from that point, I remember having long discussions with my cardiologist, who really I'm still with the same cardiologist, was very positive and said to me some really important things at the time that I still reflect on. And he said to me, just live your life. Don't worry about what you've got. Forget what you have and live your life. Go on and have a child. You are fit enough to have a child. Don't fear it. And, you know, those words ring true. Still to this day, I carry on and live my life. And so from that point, it was serious then. I was like, okay, this is no more, okay, well, you know, I'm going to go for a run 3 times a week. I'm going to eat a few more salads than chips. This was really about looking after my health. And so from that point onwards, it's been this massive kind of roller coaster ride, because I've tried so many things. And at the time, I was diagnosed 11 years ago now. And so social media wasn't the place that it is now. There weren't as many, you know, health influencers, you know, but there were enough of them. But it was also a time of, I mean, misinformation. I mean, social media is still a huge place of misinformation. And I really don't like that. I wanted to use a stronger word, but let's stick with I don't like that, because misinformation can be very damaging for a lot of people, desperate people. If you have an illness, okay, you know, mine is not a terminal illness, but at the time I wasn't convinced that it wasn't. And so I went down this path of trying different things. One of the things I decided to do was to give up sugar. I've got a massive sweet tooth, love chocolate, love sweets, and I decided to give up sugar because I'd read somewhere that sugar is going to kill you, you know, basically. And it was just horrendous. It was, you know, I thought about sugar to the point where I was dreaming about sugar. Or tried becoming a vegan, you know, didn't work, you know, all these kind of, and it's still going on now, all these things that you are fed, that you believe are going to help you to live a better life, a healthier life, a longer life. And it's not true. And so from then on, I really went down this path of self-discovery, of finding what worked for me, for my heart, for my health, what made me feel good. And I've continued down that path of, okay, well, let's try this. You know, let's try. There's so much out there on social media. And I feel like I have got social media down to a down to a T. I know who I can trust, and I trust these people for whatever reasons because they can really back up their claims. And I really do my research before I listen to anybody now and take their advice. And I also then try out whatever it is perhaps that they recommend, because everything works for me. You know, everybody's different. And so I've continued down that path, and that led me to, first of all, becoming a yoga teacher, because I wanted to incorporate exercise. I was already exercising a lot because, you know, what's the best thing that you can do for your heart? It's you know, exercising, making it stronger, and that still remains true. So I qualified as a yoga teacher because I wanted to make exercise an even bigger part of my life. And then from yoga, that led me down to meditation, to breathwork, you know, which are such wonderful and powerful tools that we can have in our lives. I experimented with a lot of different exercise. I still do. But then, interestingly enough, a couple of years ago, so I meet with my cardiologist every 6 months for a checkup. And interestingly, about 2 years ago, he's always talked about, you know, how much exercise are you getting? You know, what are you eating? And, you know, what are you drinking? You don't smoke, do you? You know, you got stress, all those kind of things that we all know about. And for the first time, he asked me, what do you do for your mental health? You know, do you meditate? Do you do breath work? And I was like, yes, actually I do. And it was so interesting that this was coming from a cardiologist, that he also recognized the importance of our mental health on our physical health. You know, especially for me as somebody with a heart problem. You know, and it just kind of validated what I already knew to be true. So from then on, I have continued trying different things. Some things work, some things don't work, some things don't really sit well with me. I can't stick to. And so the latest thing, the latest tool that I wanted to become qualified in was tapping. Because while I am physically healthy, emotionally healthy, I also feel that putting yourself out on social media and running your own business opens you up to so much more questions about yourself. It can bring about a lack of confidence that you didn't know you had. It brings about self-doubt. It brings about fear, because running your own business and putting yourself out there on social media is scary. It is difficult. And so all these feelings started coming up for me. And yes, of course, my meditation practice, my breathwork practice helped. But I needed something more for those times of self-doubt, the times of procrastination, the times when you're overthinking, the times when you're anxious. So I was practicing tapping for about a year, and then wanted to train so that I could help other people. it's like it's another string to my bow, um, that really works with everything else. We've got the physical side of it, the yoga, we've got the emotional, spiritual side of it with the meditation and the breath work. And this is something else. This is okay. I've tried these things, but I've still got this lack of confidence or self-doubt. And this is just a great tool to use.
I love it. Everything that you're saying is, resonating quite deeply with us. It's really reiterating some of the stories we keep hearing from our guests, and and obviously coming from someone who works in social media, who has built her career on social media, I have a complicated relationship with social media very much, especially when it comes to health and well-being and misinformation, because there's so much, it's such an easy access. There's so much people just trying to make quick buck, become coaches, become nutritionists, become advisors, create Facebook ads, put out there very simplistic, very sexy methods. And unfortunately, lots of people, are looking for quick fixes. They're looking for
Mm-hmm.
easy solutions. They're looking for whatever this person is quite persuasively. It worked for me, it's going to work for you. Just follow these 3 steps. You're going to be fit and sexy and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you mind sharing some of your resources? Who are some of the people that you go to and trust that you would recommend people maybe checking out and keeping an eye on? Obviously, I have my go-to resource for anything health and well-being related will be Andrew Huberman from Huberman Lab. That is
Mm-hmm.
my absolutely most favorite podcast when it comes to health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
He's not bad to look at. That's a bonus. Like, he's a very charismatic guy, but I do love his approach to science, to how he really is quite religious and rigid in terms of how much in depth of a research he does into
Mm-hmm.
making sure that his resources are qualified, well researched. He gives you it could work. It doesn't give definitive answers. It just
Mm-hmm.
quite very practical solutions, but also always when needed gives you disclaimer, be it careful for this. So that's one of my resources. Do you have anything like that you would also be able to share with us and our listeners?
Mm-hmm. I do. I am a huge podcast geek. I've been listening to podcasts for over 10 years. My first podcast was Serial, fantastic podcast. For health and wellness, yes, I also am a big Huberman fan. I love his guests more. Of course, there are some that resonate a lot more with me than others. I don't listen to all the episodes. The ones that don't really interest me. I mean, erectile dysfunction isn't really my issue. So, that's not an episode I'm going to listen to, but he has some great guests on there. Dr. Andy Galpin, Esther Perel was one of my favorite episodes that he had. Who else do I listen to? Dr. Stacey Sims. If you're interested in women's health, perimenopause, menopause, she is fantastic. Such a great source of information. And I love that her episode on the Huberman Lab was the most popular episode last year. And that just shows how much we need more information when it comes to women's health, perimenopause, menopause, longevity for women. And I love what Stacey Sims says is that women are not small men. And that resonates with me so much because, we are so different. And I guess, if you listen to the Huberman Lab podcast, you will also know that so much research in the health world is done, in the medical world, in the health world, is done on men. And so Dr. Stacey Sims is great. I always listen to the women that Andrew Huberman has on his podcasts. I just resonate with them more. Who else? I like Dr. Peter Attia. I am fascinated. I don't want to say obsessed, because I'm not obsessed. I think everybody is interested in longevity, but he is fantastic. I really like Dr. Peter Attia. If you're interested in longevity, he is the guy to go to. He has a podcast called The Drive. I also like somebody called Dr. Lane Norton, who is great at debunking a lot of the misinformation that you get out there. And he backs up everything he says. You know, if you go onto his Instagram, you will see he'll make quite a provocative video debunking misinformation, which I love. There needs to be far more of that. And he will back it up with, this research, this research, this research, this research. They're the kind of people I want to listen to.
It is very much about being yourself. I mean, you said you trying to find your way. It's not about this way works for everybody, but it's about finding what works for you. You mentioned giving up sugar, trying to be a vegan. And no, there's nothing wrong with being a vegan, but it doesn't suit everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is designed or cut out, or bodies can handle being a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can, some people can't. And it's not going with the trend, but actually finding what works for you. Is fat can also be good for you. So you can't just give up fat just because they say all fat is bad for you. Mangoes have fat in them, and some people do need to have more fat in their diets, and have proper butter, not processed butter, but proper butter. Or I think I mentioned avocados, or sometimes even for meat eaters to have some of the fat in the meat. It doesn't mean that everything has to be lean, but it's finding what works. Some people can give up sugar. Some people can't. I am one of those. I do like my sugar, but it's maybe cut down on stuff. It's you said you gave up alcohol, and I know Lenka doesn't drink, but the occasional glass of wine can be beneficial for some. So it's not about, well, because this is what they say, therefore we've all got to do exactly the same thing. And I think it's so important, especially when you're on a journey, whether it's a personal development journey, whether it's a health journey, when you're trying to find what works, is yes, by all means, try different things. I'm a big believer on try listening to people's podcasts, try reading authors. Do they resonate with you? Then stick with them. But some authors, I know I've read some authors, I love books, but doesn't mean I'm going to love every single book that's out there. Some authors, I read 3 pages and I'm thinking, you know what? Nope, you're not for me.
Life is too short.
That's okay, because you start to find what writing styles you like, what topics. But I think it's the same with food, with exercise, with anything. It's finding what works for you. Is running works obviously for you, Nina, because you do it, but not everybody wants to run or likes to run, or maybe even feels that that's what they need. Some people need more yoga or Pilates or dumbbells or whatever it is. But I think it is about looking, trying, and then seeing it for yourself. And I think this is something that's wonderful, especially for, like you help women to find their joy. I like how you said that, and their confidence and all this. But it's finding their joy. It's not like you're sitting there going, well, okay, so do this, do this, do this, and then, oh, you'll be joyful and confident and everything's happy. It doesn't work. And I think we need guidance, which is important. We can't do this all on our own, but it's also finding the right guide with the right guidance. Does that hopefully that makes sense?
I'm nodding a lot here, Natalie. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I would also add to that, knowing why you're doing it. Why are you becoming a vegan? Why are you cutting out sugar? Why are you going for a run? Is it because everybody else on social media is telling you that if you do XYZ, you're going to live until 100, you're going to be thin, lean, whatever it is that you are aspiring to, it's knowing why you're doing it. And then I would really encourage people to back up their beliefs. So if you believe that by becoming a vegan that you will live longer, or that you will have more energy, or that you will sleep better, or that you will just be healthier, that's great. And maybe all those things are true, but have you got the research to back that up? Because, I mean, for some people, becoming a vegan might be reasonably easy. For a lot of us, it's very difficult to become 100% vegan. And so to make such a big life decision, you have to know your why. You have to know, because when you're going to be tempted, and you will be tempted by a cake that's made with butter and eggs, it doesn't even have to be, a steak. People give up meat, and I know that people can quite happily give up meat. But if you're tempted by something, you've got to know your why. You've got to say, okay, I am a vegan because I know that it will do X, Y, Z, that it makes me feel better, or whatever it might be. And knowing your why is what's going to keep you going. So I agree with you that we can try all these things, and maybe it doesn't suit you. I'll give you an example. My husband doesn't drink milk. He doesn't have any dairy products. And not because it's going to make him live longer. It's just he feels better not having dairy in his diet. And that's it, and that's his why. Because if he has dairy, he doesn't feel great. And and that's his why. So it's easy then for him to, not have milk or not have cream or whatever it may be. So, really finding out your why, and not blindly following what somebody tells you to do on social media. There's so much of that, and there's so many people. For every person who's telling you to become a vegan because it's going to make you live longer, there's the same amount of people who are telling you that you should eat meat because protein is king, and that will also make you live longer.
I mean, that's really great advice, is to know your why. And I also think that one of the important things is, when you're choosing to do something, is not just get rid of stuff. So we are pretty much going for the vegans at the moment. And
I know. I'm
all
sorry.
our vegan listeners out there, it's not against veganism or you. It's just an example. So I might use vegetarians, or but it's especially in the eating world or the diet world, is it's very easy. Oh, I've got to stop fat, stop sugar, stop meat, stop this, stop this, stop this. And you then limit yourself to 5 ingredients. But I think it's quite important to find what you replace it with. Because especially if you're going vegan or vegetarian, as you said, meat has protein. So what proteins are you actually bringing in that was probably not a meat? And this, I think, is quite important, is finding, is not always getting rid of stuff out of our lives, but maybe changing what we're eating, utilizing, finding new foods, or finding foods that have protein in it, or foods that, if you want to get rid of processed sugar, but okay, so what foods have natural sugar in to have that sweet, to bring some sweet elements into your life? Because we have all these taste buds, you know, for salty, sweet, sour, and all the others. I can't remember what they are on the top of my head. And we do need to experience that. And I think with a lot of fads or following what somebody says you should do, it's stop eating sugar. Okay, but what do I replace it with? Don't have milk. Okay, but I like a milky coffee. What do I replace it with? So, or don't have dairy. Okay, what can I replace it with? And then finding, so it's not just cutting out, but it's just really bringing a difference in. And I think that can happen with a lot of things. It's I'm going to change my habits. So I'm not going to do this and this and this. Okay, but how do we replace it? What are we going to replace it with? We're just going to not sleep later, but what do you replace it with? You know, maybe going to bed earlier. So instead of thinking I've got to get up earlier, okay, I'll go to bed earlier. I don't know. I'm just trying to think up examples on the top of my head. So apologies, they're not really brilliant ones, but quite often when people say I'm going on a diet, or I'm going to become vegan, or I'm going to become a vegetarian, or I'm going to stop this, I'm going to stop that. Okay, you've now just taken a lot out of your life. What are you filling it with? And I think that's also really important, is yes, your why. I agree with that. A why is so important. But what are you filling the emptiness with? Otherwise, you're just going to sit and crave, or feel that you're missing out on, because you've gone from, say, 20 ingredients in your diet down to 10, and now you're missing out. And then you feel like, oh, I want that, or I'm missing that, or this is really boring. You know, I'm just going to eat lettuce leaves because it's the only thing that vegans, vegetarians, meat eaters will agree on. So I'll stick with lettuce leaves. And but it's not about getting rid of, but it's also about finding something new to bring into personal development, emotional life, food, exercise, whatever it is. It's finding something that then can really bring you joy. You know, it doesn't have to be a punishment. Bring something in that works with your why, that actually can bring you joy, or can bring you some sense of satisfaction. I think that's important, because we just eliminate, but don't. I don't know what the opposite of eliminate is. Add, I guess.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I learned a very, very valuable lesson when I gave up sugar. And it's exactly like you said. What was I replacing that with? I took out sugar, and I have never craved sugar more in my life than when I said I was going to stop eating it. It was a nightmare. And from that point onwards, I did the opposite. So I just added more fruits, vegetables, whole grains into my diet. And, you know, food is a massive source of joy for most people. And food should not make you miserable. What whatever your diet is, food should not make you miserable. And there are so many ways now. We're so lucky in the Western world to have so many different options open to us. You know, you said about, well, I want milk in my coffee, but I can't have dairy. You know, there's almond milk, there's oat milk, there's rice milk. There was none of that, or perhaps there was, but you would have to go to some health food shop to find it and to buy it. And for me, if when I work with my clients, I don't ever say, stop doing this, stop doing that. You know, never. I will always say, add this in. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try adding, if we're talking about diets, for example, why don't you try adding more of this, more fruits, more vegetables, more healthy proteins? You know, if we're talking about exercise, it would be the same thing. Why don't you try, depends where people are on their exercise journey, but if it's somebody who's not used to doing exercise or doesn't do daily exercise, then fine, do 5 minutes of something you enjoy. Life is too short to go for a run if you hate running. You know, go for a walk, lift weights, do some yoga, Pilates, swimming, skiing, hiking, you know, get a friend involved. Just find something that you enjoy. I mean, I just cannot. And it's the same with food. It's the same with looking after your mental health. If you hate meditation, don't sit and meditate. There are so many different ways of quietening the mind, if that's what you want, to stopping overthinking. You know, if you're overthinking, you can journal. If you're stressed, you can use breath work. If you're struggling with anxiety, self-doubt, you can tap. If you love meditation, then that's great. That's, you know, go ahead and do it. But it's not only that not everybody works, not everything works for everybody, but it's also that what I like and what I like doing, somebody else might not like. And also, importantly, they might like doing something, but they might not have the time to fit it into their day. If you're a busy working mum, you might love running. You might love going to an hour yoga class, but you don't have time to fit that into your day. And it's just an added stress to your day because you'd love to do it, but you can't do it. Then there's frustration because you can't. So it's about finding something that you can fit into your day, that you do like doing, and that brings you joy as well.
Oh gosh, I'm loving this conversation. It's so inspirational. But I also feel that, yes, we're giving people a lot of empowerment to be like, go and do whatever feels right, ignore, like, look for the advice, like, keep an eye on the advice, obviously, respect what the professionals or the science is saying and take that on board, but don't feel the pressure of doing everything as everyone else is doing. But sometimes we are so trained to just look externally and take social media into account and take doctors into account and take influencers and experts into account that we don't know what we like. We don't know what works for us. And experimentation can take time. And as you just said, it may not, like, maybe you will like it, but you don't have the time to, like, treat yourself as an experiment and, be doing this and be doing that and be doing this. You want to know what kind of, we often want to be told what we should be doing. Because I like choice. I like control and I like to really do my research, But I have also all the time in the world pretty much to do that. I don't have kids. I have very flexible lifestyle, so I can spend hours listening to podcasts and reading books and try to think how it would fit, and I can adjust my schedule whichever way I want. But then someone like you comes in place, I guess, to help people to then navigate and maybe point them into direction, not forcing them or saying this is the one way, but how about we tweak it? And I would be intrigued to know a little bit more about who are the people coming to you? What are the common patterns and challenges you see right now from the people? I know that some of the things we talked about already reflect on it, but is there something that, if people will hear this podcast, they can self-identify themselves, wait to be like, hey, wait a minute, like this sounds like me. This sounds like something where I am, what I'm struggling, what I'm thinking. Maybe this is also the approach that I should be taking with myself.
A lot of my clients are coming to me with stress. That is the number one issue. Stress, overwhelm, tiredness, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of perimenopause issues as well. A lack of energy, a lack of, perhaps they've lost their lust for life. These are a lot of things that I'm seeing. Some people want to change their careers. Some people just have this idea they've been doing their career for the last 20 years, and they're now finding that perhaps I want to try something else. And with that, there's to be able to make that leap, because sometimes it can be a big leap. Again, it comes down to self-doubt, tiredness. If you're too tired and too exhausted at the end of the day, how are you ever going to change a job? How are you going to retrain? Where are you going to find the energy, the time to do that? So there's a lot of these issues around stress. Is such a big one. And what I don't like about stress is that it's just becoming a word that everybody's using. Everybody is stressed, and it's becoming a normal way of living life. And actually, I disagree with that. I disagree that we should all be living under some kind of stress. That's not, in my opinion, it's not how we should be living life. There's so much research to show how detrimental stress is on our health, on our longevity, and it's something that really needs to be nipped in the bud. And I don't like this culture now of everybody's stressed, everybody's hustling, work harder. And for me as a coach, when I'm talking about, I don't tell anybody to stop doing something, but I would encourage putting things in. So perhaps that's looking at your sleep. That's pretty much always the first place I go to, is looking at somebody's sleep. There is always tweaks to be made when it comes to sleep. People can always sleep better. It's not always about sleeping longer, but about sleeping better. And then trying to add things in. And it's really a domino effect. So you begin sleeping better. You have a little bit more energy. So then you can make better choices. Perhaps you make better nutrition choices. That gives you even more energy. And then perhaps you add in some meditation or some breath work or some tapping. That takes away some of the stress or anxiety that you're feeling. Slowly but surely, you're sleeping better, you've got more energy, you're eating better, and perhaps now you've got the energy to add in a little bit of exercise that previously, a month ago, you thought was just impossible, because it does feel like that for some people. How can I fit in exercise? I get up at 6 a.m. I've got to get the kids ready for school. I take the kids to school and then I go to work. I'm at work all day. And then I pick up the kids and then I've got to cook dinner. And so by adding in these small, and I do mean small, taking these small steps, I don't want anybody to think that they have to overhaul their life. No, we don't overhaul lives. We take a tiny step and another tiny step and another tiny step. And what happens with those tiny steps is you can keep doing those tiny steps. You can keep taking them and you can be consistent with those tiny steps because it's easy, and that's the whole point. And then you add in another tiny step and you just stay consistent, because consistency is key to improving energy, reducing stress, reducing self-doubt, improving confidence. For me, I started this journey 13 years ago. It's 13 years since I lost my dad, and I have been on this journey for 13 years. And I've made lots of mistakes along the way. And I finally feel that I'm at a point, and I still lapse. I still have down times. I'm 49, I'm coming into the perimenopause, and I'm feeling that. And I am realizing that I am now going to have to adjust the things that I do and have always done, because I'm entering a new phase in my life. So yeah, I guess my message is that it's about taking that first tiny step in whatever it is that you're wanting to deal with, whether it's stress, exhaustion, procrastination, self-doubt, anxiety. It's just taking that first little step and then another little step.
That is very good advice. And it is usually the first step. And I think quite often we like to overcomplicate things and think we've got to do everything in one go, but it isn't. It is just that first step and then see where that takes you. And I think there's a quote that goes around, and I can't remember who it is, and it's probably going to be quoted wrong, but it is to go up a set of stairways, you've got to take that first step. So it's not about being at the top, it's about climbing that first step to get to the next one, So thank you so much. That was really some good advice. We like good advice. Hop on to our Patreon account to get this episode's amazing and wonderful gold nugget. Now for our listeners who are listening and they're thinking, oh, I need to connect, I need to be in Nina's circle, I want to find out more about Nina, where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my usual home. I'm also branching out for my sins onto Instagram, where you can find me there at Vibrant Life Coach. I also have a website, Nina Aublé Coaching. And really, please say hello, come into my DMs, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, email. Come and say hi if you've got any questions to ask. It's always a pleasure to talk to people and help people any way that I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And as Natalie said, we always want a little bit more. And I have a final question for you. You kind of touched on it a little bit in your gold nugget. But I'm curious to know, because here on the podcast, our mission is to find more life in one's life. We'd love to know what gives you more life in your life.
Oh, that is a great question. That is a great question. What gives me more life in my life? You know, so many things. Really, my little family. I have a daughter who is 8. My husband. I have wonderful friends. I spend as much time with my friends as I can. Normally, we go outside and we hike and we chat about life, love. Unfortunately, we also discuss politics from time to time. Exercise brings a lot of life and confidence into my life, really. I really encourage women to bring some exercise into their life. It boosts confidence. For me personally, exercise has boosted my confidence more than anything else. And finding the joy in the everyday. This is something that is pretty new to me, but really finding joy. I'm sitting here, I put my computer in the window, I can see snow on top of the mountains, there's a little bit of sunshine, I can feel that spring is on its way, and it's bringing me so much joy. So yeah, finding the joy in the everyday.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for sharing your time with us today, for sharing your energy, your enthusiasm, your great advice, and just being part of this wonderful conversation. So we really appreciate your time. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been so wonderful. It's been so nice to finally meet you. And yeah, my heart is full. Thank you so much.
And for our listeners, what have you got from today? What nuggets have you found? What aha moments have you had? Is exercise something that you're passionate about, or something that you're wanting to get back into? Or is it food? Are you a vegan? We would love to know your story about being a vegan. We've got nothing against veganism at all, promise. Or are you vegetarian or a meat eater? You know, just what is it that is bringing you life in your life? And we would love to hear your stories. We would love to hear your thoughts, especially what you've got from this conversation. And until next time, we'll chat to you soon. Bye. Here is your reminder about our Patreon, where you get all our really beautiful gold nuggets. And today we had a fantastic gold nugget to share. Subscribe to Patreon. The link is in the description below. Hop into the gold nugget section to access all our wonderful gold nuggets. There is also a free section where you can access snippets from past episodes, as well as some great content with tips, advice, and beautiful and wonderful wisdom. Come and join up and be part of the Into Your Life community. We would love to see you there.